the shop building, and we're going to share information with you about the Army Reserve outfit that was organized under Ike Eisenhower in 1954. Today's January the 11th, and it was 67 years ago today that I took the oath of being a United States Army soldier. Remember the day for several reasons. One of them was my brother's birthday is today, which he is 80 years old, and at that time he was 13. Being a country boy I suffered cultural shock when I went in for a physical examination and then went on into the service. Eisenhower asked Congress for an active Army Reserve because of the Cold War situation, and in 1954, if my memory serves me correctly, Congress passed the act, and they started 3 different programs: do 2 years active duty, 4 years reserve, or you could do, if you went into the reserves, you could do 6 months active duty and 5.5 years of reserves, or you could do 8 years of reserves. I chose to do the 8 years because of the family situation. My mother had passed away, and my brother was 11 and my sister was 5, so I chose to do the 8 years so I could be home with them part of the time. Our armory was at the youth building up on Wall Street. In 1955, in August, we were to report to Camp McCoy, Wisconsin, and we had to supply our own transportation. And there was only 20 men in the outfit at that time. 4 of them were officers, and the rest of us was enlisted men. We went to Camp McCoy as Charlie Battery of the 379th Field Artillery. A big educational thing for me. I'd never been around the big gun, had no idea that the shells had packages of powder, and that depending on how far you wanted that round to go, you put so many packages in the shell, and it was just a great educational experience for me. Charlie Battery of the 379th Field Artillery until June of '59, and then the Army's wisdom, they decided to make us a armored recon outfit, A Troop, for the 4th Squadron of the 4th Cavalry. The cavalry outfit had been disbanded after World War II, but they reactivated the 4th Cavalry, and anyhow we ended up at Fort Knox, Kentucky. None of us in the armor or in the field artillery had been around armor. So the first year at training at Fort Knox was definitely an experience. I want to back up to the 4th year of field artillery. We had an incident that we took about 20 years to figure out. But we had a group of men, we were told they were Latinos from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, assigned to us. Anyhow, orders came down that every man would go to the firing range and qualify on the M1 rifle. While we was out at the firing range, and nobody in the armory, it was broken into. All the excess weapons that was not with us and all the communication equipment that was not with us was stolen. We later learned, of course, the Bay of Pigs. And finally, some of us come to the conclusion we probably contributed to that when they broke into our supply room and stole our armament. I was blessed to be supply sergeant for 4 years while we was the field artillery outfit, and then when they went to armor, I ended up being platoon sergeant of the 1st Platoon. Whenever you make rank, a lot of responsibility comes with it, and part of that responsibility is teaching different things to different men on different things that you're qualified to teach on. And anyhow, I want to show you a pointer that I put together. Of course, this is the patch of the Ozark Division, 102nd Infantry. This pointer is a primer in a 105 artillery shell. I put for the handle the 50 caliber casing, and for the pointer, why I put the shell of the 50 caliber bullet on it. This is our crest, represented the 379th, and it's the double bears on there on artillery shells, very similar to the emblem of the state of Missouri, which has the two bears on it. My rank when I was discharged was Sergeant First Class, which is E7. There was only 2 more ranks as a soldier you could get without going to OCS. And think of the different experiences in the men. The first summer camp that we went to, there was 20 of us. And of those 20 men, one other soldier and myself that's still alive. And he's a farm boy out by East Lynn. Think of the men that we served with when we were with armor. We ended up being full strength, ended up with 144 men in the outfit. So we felt very blessed that we had that many men here in Cass County that was willing to serve. I was discharged, I think it was February the 3rd in 1963, when the buildup of Vietnam was starting. And 2 years after I received my discharge, there's 385,000 soldiers in Vietnam. From about the time I was discharged until about 1975, I probably wouldn't have wore this cap in this town. That is how much upheaval that was going on. And of course, most of you know, on April the 21st, 1972 was when 2 police officers was assassinated on the north side of the square. 2 other people lost their lives and 1 was wounded. Both of those men were veterans, returned from the Vietnam theater, and there was a lot of misinformation put out, and people believed some of that misinformation. So the pendulum swings both ways. Military men right now seem to be respected. I am thanked for my service, and I appreciate that. It was an honor to serve. I have a grandson who graduated from OCS 7 years ago at Fort Benning, Georgia, as an infantryman. After his graduation, and congratulations from the commanding officer, he turned and gave me his first salute as an officer. And in his hands, we shook, and he gave me an Eisenhower silver dollar. It's a 1972 publication, but Eisenhower was my commander-in-chief when I served. So I treasure that. I've carried it every day since then, and probably will continue to carry it the rest of my life. On October the 17th of 2018, I was honored to be part of the honor flight that went to Washington, D.C. And the honor flight gave us this medallion, and of course it's got all 5 services on it. That was certainly an honor and a privilege. Also, there's a young man that grew up here in Harrisonville and ended up as an officer in the United States Navy. His name is on the Wall of Honor here at the Harrisonville High School. His name was Randall Dykes, and he was a captain of the USS San Antonio, and he gave me a crest from that, and I treasure that. Several years ago, I put up signage of 102nd Infantry Division. You can see C, the O, Rocky. They named it 1922 after World War I. They decided that it was best that they put men together that was from the same area. In other words, Missouri, Arkansas, eastern Kansas, western Illinois, and so forth. Field artillery was assigned to support the infantry boys of the 102nd. We was 105 Howitzers. My enlistment date is here on the bottom of January 11th, 67 years ago. And in June of '59, why we was made the 4th Reconnaissance, 4th Cavalry, the 4th Reconnaissance Squadron. All the time, most of the time, the first 3 years when we were field artillery, we met at the youth building at 302 East Wall Street. And then we met at 1602 North Commercial. We rented a building, I'm using the term we, the United States military rented a building from a fellow by the name of Carl Fiorella. He was the brother of Russ Fiorella, who had the smokestack at 75th and Prospect. It means very little to anybody today, but the smokestack is Brand and the Fiorella family still running that business. Again, this is the crest of the 4th Cavalry. Our weapon was an M41 tank. It was powered by a 12-cylinder gasoline engine, and on a good day, you could get a mile with 4 gallons of fuel. Oh, that tells you that we had to have fuel bubbles everywhere in order to train. It had a 76 millimeter weapon on it, plus a 30 caliber machine gun and a 50 caliber machine gun. It was a crew of 4. We trained here in Harrisonville. We had 2 of these vehicles, and we trained over at the North Park. And I hope that we can get over there and let you see some of the things that we done. We're here at the flag shed at the same site that the rest of us at. And in 1984, the Rotary Club started the flag project. Coincidentally, I happen to be the president of the club 84-85. You notice that we put up flags 6 days out of the year for $40. This is one of our biggest fundraisers. We built this shed and put it up in 2017. Provided about $100,000 to be put back into the community for different projects. Rotarians have been very faithful to keep this project going. I'm very grateful that there is the interest of the business people to subscribe for this so we can put the flags up on their place of business. Patriots Day, of course, is a day that, well, it's just a sad, sad day. Came upon us, and we just felt like we had to put up the flags on that day. We're in front of the Youth and Civic Center that was built in 1949, built by the citizens of Harrisonville. The businessmen had a fun drive, and the volunteer folks of the community put this building together. That was the first year I came into Harrisonville to high school. Charlie Battery, the 379th Field Artillery, was organized by a fellow by the name of Clarence Long. He was a captain military in World War II. He and 2 other officers organized this particular unit, and we met in the basement of this. In 1955, we had a total of 20 men in the outfit, and about 16 of them were Korean veterans. So I was definitely the greenest guy in there. This particular piece of ground was owned by the American Legion building, which is next door here and joins it. And they signed a 99-year lease with the group of men who formed the Youth and Civic Association. It is now under private ownership. I can't explain to you how disappointed it was to me to see that community funds put this together with volunteer help and all of the youth through the years, and 4-H organizations and other organizations used the building, and then it ended up under private ownership. I don't know what else you can say about it, but it's a fine building. It was an asset for the community, and it touched an awful lot of lives for about 55, 60 years. This brick is what they call a hackberry finish. and it was manufactured at the local brickyard, which the street that the brickyard was on is Brick Plant Road, which is down by Love Truck Stop, and the transfer stations are there. We're on Commercial Street, here at the building that is now a pawn shop, but in the 60s, why, it was an armory, and we brought our tanks in here through this door. The tanks had 2 inches on each side of them when we brought them in. We had a pair of tanks, and took a double crown guy to get them in, but you notice that the jams are still on the garage door. We were blessed that we never did tear anything up. We had 2 tanks, 2 2.5-ton trucks, and 3 Jeeps in the outfit at that time. We stored them here in this building, and we trained here. I wanted to share with you one of the funniest things that ever happened to me when I was in the military was at this site. And of course, anybody that's soldiered for 8 years has got all kinds of stories to tell. We was having an IG inspection here. At that time, we were about 85 men. We had 3 platoons, a headquarters platoon, a 1st platoon, and 2nd platoon. I happened to be a platoon sergeant of the 1st platoon, and fell into ranks, and first thing to give the command open rank for the IG inspector to go through and interview all the men. Well, I had to take 3 steps forward, and the next rank step 2, and the next rank step 1. And then he gave the command to post. And when he gave that command, why, it come out poof, and the lower dentures come sailing out right toward me. And he flipped up his right hand and stuck out his finger, and that denture caught on that finger, just like a horseshoe would on a peg. The teeth didn't hit the ground, he caught them. Anyhow, one of the funniest things I ever seen in my life. I had to post behind the platoon, and his position was beside me at the post. And he would elbow, I was just suffering, wanting to laugh out loud. And he would elbow me and tell me to shut up. And anyhow, when the inspecting general come through the ranks, interviewed my men, I was still suffering from lack of oxygen, wanting to laugh. And he stepped in front of me, and I thought, boy, I won't even be able to tell this man my name. And he looked at me straight in the eye, and he said, sure was funny, wasn't it, Sergeant? So anyhow, I survived it, didn't have any questions from the inspecting general. And at the end of the inspection, why, we had a critique for the non-coms and officers. And the first thing the inspector general said, I've never seen anything like that before. 4th Cavalry was reactivated in June of 1960. And the Army Reserve outfit that was in town was a field artillery outfit, and we was converted over to armor. Unbeknownst to us, why, the United States Army seen that we got a couple of tanks on flat rail car from the Red River Arsenal. These tanks were M41 tanks with 76 millimeter guns on them, and they were used extensively in Korea. They still had a few of them here in the States, and that's how come we ended up getting them from the Red River Arsenal. Anyhow, we had no place to drive them, so we asked the city council if we could come in here. And they gave us permission to, with the rules to be safe. And a bunch of young guys always needs that. Most of the foot trails in the park now were tank trails. We're standing here where the depression that was put in here in 1960, 62 years ago, and the aftermath of those tanks where we run them through here and down, it still shows. One weekend when we was coming out here to train for the men to learn how to drive, why, over on Locust Street, why, there was 3 boys in a 1954 Ford, deep blue color. And They was startled over the fact that they seen an Army tank coming down the road. They swerved a little bit to miss the mailbox. And that little bit put them right into the tank track. And that 54 Ford looked like a giant chainsaw had went down the side of it. The tracks tore a little bit of fender off, and I heard the driver say, "Oh my, I just hit a car." I was in the turret, happened to look, I was working on the radios trying to get the headset working, and I happened to look up and I seen a piece of automobile fly over. We stopped, the car stopped, the boys got out and took off running. One of them run to the east down Locust Street about 150 feet, jumped over in the right of way in the brush and sat there. And when I got to him, why, he had white coveralls on and rabbit blood on those coveralls, and I didn't know it was rabbit blood. Had his head in both hands, sitting there nodding back and forth. And when I got there, he was saying, "Oh my, what's my daddy gonna say? What's my daddy gonna say?" Well, anyhow, we had to do a report of survey on the accident, and all's well that ends well. Somebody got a pretty nice 54 Ford out of the deal, and we got off without any penalty. Right down here at the foot of the draw, one of the boys missed a tank trail, run off into the creek, and buried the tank. It took us about 4 hours to figure out how to get it out of there, and we finally decided to chop down a hickory tree that was about 10 inches in diameter, chain it to the tracks on the front of it, and let the transmission and the engine do all it could. It pulled itself. As it pulled that log in under it, it pulled the suction off of that tank and leapfrogged itself out of there. So again, we got out of that problem. Lots of stories can be told about the incidents out here in this timber, but we got a beautiful, beautiful timber, and grateful that we had the opportunity to use it. I'm grateful that citizens let us use it, and I'm grateful the citizens are really getting the opportunity to use it now.